It's not every day in the Gunpla world that you get to build a dragon. Gunpla are, of course, plentiful in the model kit community. Bandai's attempts at diversifying through the Figure-Rise Standard and Figure-Rise Amplified series has been admirable, but also quite hit and miss. I can't deny that overall, the Figure-Rise Standard kits I've built so far have been disappointing compromises in quality that I can't hate on too hard, considering their size, price point, and consistent build quality. But they do leave you wanting more than the sum of their parts. Quite literally. So, when you come across a kit that lets you build one of the coolest dragons this side of the Millennium Puzzle, you can't help but set your expectations through the roof. Will this kit be able to bring some originality to the table? Let's find out in this Kwij Gamer review of the Bandai Figure-Rise Standard Amplified Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! I said that all in one breath. By no means would I call myself an expert model kit builder, but I know a lot of the basics. And to be frank, this ain't my first rodeo. Frankly, this kit didn't seem that challenging. All you need to do is build a skeleton with wings. Easy, right? Well, I've got some news for you. Yep, it was easy. In comparison to another recent amplified kit I built, the War Greymon, which contained a similar quantity of runners, it took me a lot less time to complete the building of this kit. You get a total of 11 runners in this kit, a pair of plastic winged Patagia, and a clear action base 4. In case you heard that last sentence and needed a definition of that term, no worries, I got you. So an action base is what you use to prop up the model and pose it in different ways. The kit gives you 2 different pieces that you can use to connect to the action base, but this base isn't necessarily made for the dragon. You're given all the same kinds of parts as if you plan to buy an action base 4 on its own, and you'll definitely get a lot of mileage out of this base by using it with your other builds. This kit is interesting for a few reasons. First of all, to my absolute shock, there were absolutely no stickers or decals that come inside this box. Not even blue stickers you might have expected to make the eyes really pop. No, this kit doesn't need them. The blue in the Blue Eyes White Dragon name aren't phony baloney stickers. They're actually blue, and pretty striking blue at that. It employs a single runner and a matte finish to comprise elements like the inner joint mechanisms, but other than that, everything else has a nice shiny coating to it. Not necessarily metallic, but it's very similar to the plastic type found on the RG Sinanju, if you're familiar with that kit. This type of plastic is special, and building this kit is just that, special. Cutting parts from runners turns out to be either a softer experience than normal, or a harder, perhaps even crispier experience than regular runners. It's hard to describe unless you've handled this type of plastic before, but the glossy runners are exceptionally brittle. If you remove nub marks from these parts, you're shaving rather than cutting in most cases. Extra pieces fall off in chips, chunks, or flakes, and all I can say is that personally, for me, that's an extremely satisfying experience. Unfortunately, I'm no expert in plastic to tell you what kind is making this fragility, but I do enjoy cutting it. However, this ties into the whole easy aspect of this kit. Before I started building this kit, I forgot to replace the blade on my hobby knife, which at that point had gone through a whopping 4 full kits without a replacement. I was expecting the blade to be duller than a butter knife by this point, but my laziness got the better of me and I pushed through instead of swapping it out. I can now say that this knife has now survived 5 total builds. Maybe easy is the wrong word to describe building the kit. Perhaps forgiving would be fairer. You're working with a completely white model, with only some blue for the eyes and purple for the inner mouth and tongue. If your knife slips, or if you're working with a dull blade, it will be extremely hard to screw up on this kit. Any nicks or nub marks will be masked by the natural color of the plastic. Before I go on, let me quickly rewind for a second and let's hear a comment I made while building the Figure-Rise Frieza kit. And the tail is made up of 3 pieces that only spin on one plane each. A bendable tail that could hold multiple positions would have been great, but at this level kit, and at this price, I know that's asking for too much. I know the chronology of release for these kits doesn't match up with my review timing, but what I was hoping for with Frieza's tail, a more mobile mechanism of movement, has been more than satisfied in the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Bandai could have gone the lazy route and simply added ball joint after ball joint after ball joint to connect the elements of the head, torso, and tail, but no, ball joints are used relatively sparingly in favor of a lead wire element that runs through the neck and most of the tail portions. On paper, this should theoretically allow for better range of motion motion, flexibility, and the ability to hold more interesting poses. In practice, however, there are some downsides. Starting with the range of motion, the tail is far less mobile than the neck. Using more wire would allow for more flexibility, but the prescribed lengths in the instructions don't really allow for a wide range of positions. If you bend too much or in too creative of a position, the wire will dislodge and could potentially fall off. While connected to the body, it also doesn't feel too secure, with an obviously loose point right at the base of the tail. The neck, on the other hand, has a very nice bend to it that seems to be able to withstand a lot more before eventually dislodging. To find other issues with this kit, we need to look no further than the wing segments, which don't seem like they can withstand much stress. The process of rotating the wings in their sockets causes a significantly high amount of torque on the joints. The main issue seems to be that the ball joints are a bit small considering the massive wings they're meant to support. If you adjust the wings too often, you'll find them becoming loose. Ramp up the carelessness and you could find yourself with an unfortunate break. Another slight gripe that I have with the way the wings are built comes down to the kit's stability and posability. The wings must always be outspread. They can pivot to slightly pull them into the body, but they simply can't collapse. This limits your options on how you want to display your kit. The legs of the dragon also face limitations because of the length of the tail. You can't really stand the kit very high on its hind legs without the use of the action base, because the tail just can't bend itself out of the way. The way the tail and the wings work together to hamper the model's ability to move is really a feat in itself when you think about it. But enough complaining. What's the final verdict? Well, it's an absolutely stunning kit visually. There are no stickers or decals of any kind, very few nub marks or stress marks because of its color scheme, and it has unique elements to the build, utilizing novel wing, neck, and tail segments. On the other hand, the kit's range of motion can be frustrating. The wings have several issues, from their inability to close to the joints that seem too weak to handle their size, and the simplicity of the kit might be off-putting to some more experienced builders. Overall, I'd rate this a solid B. Even when kits disappoint in certain areas, I have to give credit where it's due. The finished products always seem to satisfy, no matter how frustrating some elements become. The Blue Eyes White Dragon is no different. Fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! And fans of model kits will definitely enjoy building and showing this thing off. Sure, it might not be the sturdiest kit on the block, but like I said from the outset, it's not every day that you get to build a dragon. Thanks for watching this review of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Be sure to check out my channel for videos of this kit being built, one long form and one short form, as well as other model kit reviews, gaming, and more. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and if you have an opinion on the Blue Eyes White Dragon or want to see a specific kit being built, just drop a comment below. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.